experience Girl Scouts in Saudi Arabia. And as you can see, I'm not wearing a Girl Scout t-shirt right now. What I'm wearing actually is an Indian shalwa kameez. And what happens with this is, in Saudi, you're required to dress conservative, but a lot of the American ladies did not like wearing the abaya, which is the black robe, which I'll show you later on in the presentation. So that's what so we felt more comfortable wearing this to be conservative. So we enjoyed that. Anyway, what I'm going to do is take you through. Let's get this onto presentation mode. I'm going to take you through a discussion to answer some questions because a lot of people always say, what is it like living in Saudi? So I started with where I'm from, why Saudi Arabia, what it was like living in, KSA stands for Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, so you might see me interchange that between Saudi Arabia, and KSA. And then how did Girl Scouts begin in KSA, and what was it, Girl Scouts like there? So where am I from? Well, that's a good question, and that's the first thing everybody says, here, where are you from? And I go, well, that is a long question. I'm gonna take this off because this is me. I don't know how they did that. They wear them all day long, especially the Indians, and then they wear the sari, and I don't know how they do it because it's always something I fiddle with. You'll see that too with the Saudis. They tend to take the hijab and fiddle with that too because that's what they do. Anyway, back to where I'm from. I was born in New York, and then as a child I moved down the coast to Pennsylvania and then to Florida. Then married my husband, I went up the coast. I moved to Tennessee and then Massachusetts, and then Saudi Arabia. So the question is, why Saudi Arabia? Well, my husband was really good at his job. He restructured, his job was to restructure companies to make them more efficient. Well, he was so good, he restructured himself out of a job. That was why we moved around. And he had his resume out with headhunters, and the headhunters, we never figured out how they found him, but he gets a phone call and says, would you like to move to Saudi Arabia? Well, that next thing was, where is Saudi Arabia? I mean, I know it was in the Middle East, but you hear so much unrest and concerns and things from here that you're like, Saudi Arabia? So I had to go on the map and find out where Saudi Arabia was. After about a month and a half or so working with the company, we ended up taking our two daughters, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and moved over to Saudi Arabia. People thought we were nuts. But I think I'm really young, I know. So the company that was hired is called Saudi Aramco. This is a picture of their facility. You can see, let's get the mouse working. You can see over here, this is the mosque. Everywhere is a mosque, and we'll talk more about that. This is the oil refinery, and then these are the kind of the office buildings where my husband worked, because he was in finance. Aramco was the largest oil producer. It is the world's largest oil producer. And here's a bit of history about the company. In 1951, Aramco found their first offshore oil field in the Middle East. At that time, it was an American-owned company. Then in 1970 and part of the 80s, they gradually passed to Saudi Arabia government, which eventually took over and renamed it Saudi Aramco, though people still refer to it as Aramco. Saudi Aramco has 3 different, let's see, I have to put this up and down, sorry about that. I was gonna have a podium and ask for one. So Saudi Aramco has 3 different compounds. One is called Ras Tanur, and that one's right on the water. The next is Abcake, and the third one was called Dhahran. Dhahran is where I live, where our family lived, and it's the largest of the compounds. Most people in the area is called the Eastern region. As you can see, it's over on the east side of Saudi Arabia. Most people know Riyadh. Riyadh is the capital, and that's the one most commonly known. Thank you. Okay, so what was it like living in Saudi Arabia? Well, it's like any gated community in the US, especially a golf course gated community. So you walk in, except for you had people over hundreds of nations represented in one community. Let's see where I'm at, jump ahead. In the Dhahran camp, which is the one we lived in, they had you could accommodate almost 50,000 residents. The difference is every entrance to the compound had a security gate, and in the security gate was a security guard with a machine gun. We really didn't have too much concern there. There was a couple of times we were warned, and you would know when something's happening either in Saudi or around Saudi because they would have the machine guns up and ready to be. Actually, they had like a little gate that they hid behind, but you would know when there's something had happened, and you just had more protected, more security guards there. And plus, part of that too, when we were there, we didn't have a wall all the way around the community, and after some unrest, and they started putting a wall around it. But besides that, we felt safe, especially on the compound. The housing was offered by the company, so everything was done through the company. And the house, yes?
I'll make sure it's correct. There is it's almost like a double mic. There isn't we're getting a feedback.
Okay, if I hold it down here, is that better?
Yeah.
How about here?
Yeah, there isn't
Here?
like a wire.
Can you hear me back there if I do this? Okay. Sorry, I'm putting it too close to my mouth, that's why.
Yeah, it was
Is
almost
this-
like there was a wireless plus that.
No, I don't have the wireless on. Okay, is this better? Okay. I know, I'm nervous, I apologize. All right, so the housing in Saudi Arabia was given to you by the company. You didn't have a choice, you couldn't pick your home. Basically, we found out we're moving to Saudi, we got to chat to some people that live there, and then they said, this is your home. And so basically, they have different style homes. One was a modular, and that's the one we lived in. This was our modular. And then you also had townhouses. And then they had, I don't have a picture of the ranch style, but this was kind of a view of all of the townhouses together. And so we, in order to change houses, which was the challenge, you could change a house, but you had got points. Every month you would get 1.5 points, and eventually you could change a house. And it depended on your grade code. I didn't get into that. So each company, each person gets a grade code when you're hired by the company, and the grade code decides what money you earn, what points you get, what housing you get. So that was kind of part of it too. So we ended up taking 11 years to get a new home. And we were there a total of 16 years, which is the longest we've ever lived anywhere. Or almost 17 actually. So let's see, did I cover everything here? Yep. So in this picture, here's the abayas that I was talking about. They wear a black robe, I call it a robe, but it's an abaya. And then they have a hijab, which or a shayla, head covering, and then the veil. And as you can see, these are cohabitating. You got somebody in Western wear walking right next to somebody in the Eastern culture. On the compound, we had everything you needed. You really didn't have to go off the compound, but anything less like reading the bubble here. It's kind of the same idea. We needed to leave a bubble too, so we would be able to do that. I'll go more into that in a minute. So this is the picture of our commissary. The commissary is the marketplace, so that was right there. And it had, because of so many different nationalities, you would have not only the American-based food, but you'd have some from England, some from India, so they'd have a variety of different. The tricky part was if you saw something you liked, you hoarded it. So like if chocolate chips came in, you'd buy 10 or 15 bags of chocolate chips. If you black beans, because a lot of people from Texas, black beans was a big thing that people would hoard, so it was interesting that you know. And then you could ask them to try to bring stuff into the commissary from outside. Sometimes they would, sometimes they wouldn't, you didn't know. Our last year there, we had Thanksgiving, speaking of Thanksgiving coming up, and we had our turkeys. Normally it was a butterball turkey. Well, this last year, for whatever reason, we were handed a commissary bag, which is a plastic bag with a turkey in it. It was pretty much defeathered, but the head was still on. So that was our experience on our last Thanksgiving in Saudi Arabia. So they have other things within the compound. We had another place called the Amajama building. That was pretty much had everything. It had the post office, it had your mailbox, it had photo shops, it had the dry cleaners, the gift shops, and that housing. And that was right next to that commissary building you saw there. The compound also had a golf course. Not like the villages, it was a golf course. And it started out as an oil-based golf course. It was slicked oiled and it was brown. And then eventually they changed it over to a 18-hole green golf course. They have parks and recreation areas. And as you can see, we did cohabitate. There were Saudis that lived on the compound along with other nationalities. And they also had a swimming pool, and with this, they had 2 swimming pools on the Dalron compound, but every compound, Abcake, Rastanur, they all had swimming pools. And they all had fitness areas, and they all had a theater, and they all had a library, and they all had, let's see, restaurants. So everything was within that compound. We even had a museum all about the history. There was one, actually at one time, they had everything about the history of Girl Scouts up. So they would change over whatever they were sharing at that time in the museum on the compound. The best part of it was, at the time I was there, ladies could not drive off the compound, but you want to get off the compound. And your husband would do it at that. Most people said they didn't love being your chauffeur, especially the American husbands. They also had drivers, but the company provided a bus. So this was the Aramco bus, and the Aramco bus was an air conditioning bus. This is the same bus that the children would go to school on, and we'd go off, we'd go to different compounds on it, we would go to the beach all different things with this, being able to have that facility. None of this cost any money. The only thing you paid for was your housing. Your housing you paid monthly and include your utilities. So we would crank the air down to 68 and be able to do that without any problem. We didn't pay for it. It was just 1 cent fee. And they would take that every time out of my husband's paycheck. We also had a medical facility on the compound, and that again, like all that was covered except for, because our insurance, there's just part of it. We had insurance that we would use outside of Saudi, but inside it was all covered within the compound except for the dental, and that they would take out of the paycheck. So I never saw a bill. In the pictures here, you have a picture of the schools. Every compound had its school, kindergarten through 9th grade. They'd stop at 9th grade. And there was, like I said, I taught a kindergarten music. That was one of the things I did there. And I would have 20 different nationalities in one music program. So it was pretty incredible. And the picture on the top corner, this one here, that's the dining hall. So that's where everybody would go to eat a lot of times. We had other restaurants that popped up over time, but that was the main, kind of like walking into a mesh hall, I guess is how to describe it. They had a lot of different nice foods, and it was definitely more upscale than a mesh hall. What you're seeing here is every compound, everywhere in Saudi are mosques, and there's the call of prayer. Now the call of prayer happens 5 times. They have let me make sure I get this right. They have a sunrise prayer, a noon prayer, an afternoon prayer, a sunset prayer, and a night prayer. And these sound like this. I wanted to give you a chance to see what they sound like, so I went ahead and I want to grab some here. This is the call of prayer. For about 20 minutes. You hear that every day, 5 times a day, out of the loudspeakers, and on the compound there was at least 3 or 4 mosques. So you hear it from this direction, this direction, this direction, this direction. You don't miss the call of prayer. I should say, I don't miss the call of prayer. And also, if you're on the compound, most things stay open. Some of the things closed, some of the stores that were more religious, but the rest of the stuff would stay open, so I could go in the commissary. But off compound, when you were out there, you had a choice. You either could stay in and be locked in, literally locked in a store, or they might kick you out and you have to sit for 20 to 30 minutes waiting for the store to open back up. So shopping was very limited because as I mentioned, the prayer, they stop. So at 11, we would have a window of opportunity of 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. to try to run through the marketplace to try to get what you wanted. So it was always in a rush. I don't think I ever enjoyed shopping in Saudi Arabia off the compound for sure. And then the Saudis, they should show up. I mean, that is you would see people just sitting around. They're supposed to go pray, and mostly men go, but in the mosque itself, there's a ladies section, which is usually the top, and then the lower part is for the men, and then they're bowing down to the towards Mecca, which is the high holy city. Again, here's a picture of the bus that takes you around the campus, and I'm going to get a chance to see where I'm at. Okay. Other things in Saudi that was kind of unique to it was date palm trees, and you would literally see these men going up to the top of the date palm tree and throwing down the dates. You have camels, of course. And then, and you'd see those, not on the compound, but as we were driving. See, the compound was like a little oasis, so it was kind of like walking in the villages. It was an oasis. And within there, that was fine. You walk off, it was desert. It was desert everywhere else, pretty much. Even some of the cities around it were dirty and not very nice. And I didn't get into much about bathrooms, but it's an Eastern toilet. And if you've ever experienced an Eastern toilet, that's why you see them mostly in dresses, because then you squat over a hole in the ground with a little bit of porcelain around it. And then you take a scoop and you pour it in most of the time. That's how you use the restroom. They had a few Western toilets, and we all ran for those, but the Saudi ladies never knew how to use a Western toilet. Basically, they would stand on top of so can you imagine going on top of a toilet seat and squatting down? So there were a lot of broken toilet seats, and they used to say, please do not stand on the toilet seat, and it was just, so they used Eastern, I tried to find Western when I could. And then we have a picture of, this is called a souk. So these are dates at the date palm, and they're delicious. Now that I think about it, I should have brought dates with me, I forgot, but anyway. So there are different kinds of souks. Souks are stores, they're usually outdoor markets. And in the souks, what they have is like if you're walking down a street, they're all gonna be of the same merchandise. So gold souks, you've got the sewing souks or the craft souks, and then you have all these different souks. So you'll know which street to go on. And that helped when I was rushing around to try to shop for what I was looking for off compound. And you'll hear me interchange compound and camp because that's what I call it. I still call the villages compound. The other day, I want my compound. All right, so now we're going to get a chance to get to that. So that's the history of how we got to Saudi a little bit, because this is what I'm sharing with you, all those Girl Scouts experienced. And so that's why I wanted to get into that before I started. So this is how the girls, yep. Mm-hmm.
Let's ask questions.
Okay, does anybody have any questions about living over Saudi Arabia? Yes?
What was the scoop you put in there? That was like a deodorizer?
Oh no, it was a bucket of water. And you just took the bucket of water to move down whatever you had done in the... They speak Arabic, and I learned very little because, like I had said, the compound was American-based, and I worked in the school, and the school was an American curriculum, which honestly made no sense at all because most of those kids were not going to go back to American school. But because we used quarters and nickels and dimes, well, they use halalas, but they are the same increments, 5, 10, 15. So it worked out okay, but it just never made sense to me. Yes?
What years were you there?
Well, that's a good question. So we moved there in 2001, right before September 11th. So that was an interesting experience. My family was very nervous for us to be, well, yeah, my parents were nervous when we told them we were going there, but yeah. And then we were there too on 2017. Yes?
How many people were in the compound?
Well, like I said, it accommodates over 50,000 at that time. I don't remember how many. The compound basically had a main camp and the hills. That's what they called it too. And it covered a good, I mean, it took me 20 minutes, 10 minutes in a car to get from end to end, 20 minutes bike riding, and then about 40 walking.
When they had the swimming pool, what did the Saudi women wear?
That's a good question too. So the swimming pool, the Saudi women don't usually go in the pool. First of all, they have never learned to swim, most of them. And they do have their abayas on, usually sitting watching their children, who can wear bathing suits, not bikinis. You'll see them in one of those full-length bathing suits with the full arms for the girls. The men could get away without, of course, anything. But the ladies, yeah. And my daughters, so I did skip a part. No, I didn't. We'll get into it later. There's a part about it, but my daughters would come back and wear bikinis, and I'd fight them every time. Because I'll explain what I mean by coming back. But any other questions before we get to Girl Scouts? Yes.
Was there other, like compounds, other houses of worship or faith?
Good question too. Okay, so because it was American-based at the beginning, they allowed us to continue doing faith underground. So basically, the schools in their gymnasiums would hold. I was in a non-denominational one, which really was a bunch of different cultures. Africans and Filipinos really know how to worship. And then they had a Catholic, an Episcopal, and a Mormon. So they did, but it was all on the compound. It was not. If you worshipped off the compound, you were arrested. So you had, that's why it was a good question. We had some friends that were arrested and then usually sent back. That's not enough to cut your head off. What they would cut people's head for was stealing, and usually it wouldn't be Americans. It's very much a class, as I mentioned, a class-based system. So if you're an American and you do something wrong, you just get sent back out. You're out of the country.
Another question. So your kids were like what, 3?
3 and 5 when they started.
You were there. So they were there like through teenagers.
Right. So I'll jump ahead and come back to it when I discussed cadets. But yes. So the grades went from kindergarten through 9th grade. And there were a lot of people, and out of their homes they would do the preschool age. So like I did a preschool music program out of my home, so you could do anything you wanted out of your homes, and within reason, as long as they didn't get upset. Then you have a choice at 9th grade, 10th grade, they would go off to either the Dahran Academy was really the only option, which was off the compound, so that was already nerve-wracking. You don't want your kid every day going off the compound on a bus, to the U.S. Embassy, which is pretty much Target, and that's where the Dahran Academy was. And then of course it was mostly, Saudis could go there too, so it was a little really Saudis weren't opposed to, I guess I shouldn't say Saudis, Muslims, not Saudis, Muslims could go there too. And what the tricky part was, Saudis could not go to the school system after kindergarten, so if they lived on the compound or were Aramco employee's child, they could not go after kindergarten because boys and girls can't go to school together. They had separate schools for boys and separate schools for girls. So the rest would have to be expat kids that were in the schools after kindergarten. So my daughters went off to boarding school, so that's the other option. So I was not keen on Dahan Academy, and neither were the kids. And so we sent our kids to boarding school in New Jersey, but they could go on anywhere in the world. There were people sent them to Switzerland, to England, but we wanted to get them acclimated back to the U.S. because they're called a third culture kid, and so they need to get used to being back in their culture if that's where they're going. And so, yeah.
That really didn't change. I had a neighbor, so I'm trying to think this was whatever, 20, 30 years ago or whatever, and they were in Saudi for, I don't know, probably a few years, and she said that she had to put her 14-year-old in a boarding school
Yeah,
in the country.
Mhm.
She could bring the younger one, but she couldn't bring the 14-year-old.
They started doing that in this company too because they didn't want to have more than 2 kids supposedly in here. So there was a person who had 5 kids and that was supposed to come in. That changed over time because of the cost of living and things that adjusted. The company adjusted. They used to take any amount number of kids, but yeah. So my daughter, yes, my first daughter was 15. She went through the whole school system. She was kindergarten through 9th grade. They did a graduation. And then my younger daughter couldn't wait to get out. There's a thing about reaching an age where teenagers and dads don't get along. That was mainly the big reason, but part of it was she was ready to get out of Saudi Arabia. So she went to the same school as her sister, so there was some comfort, but she was 14. Yeah, so, and that was, if you ask my kids, was it good, was it bad? I didn't want to do that. We moved there, like I said, they were 3 and 5, so and I knew about boarding school saying, I don't have to worry about that. We're gonna be out of there in 10 years. Then it was 2, then it was 5, then it was 10. As you can tell, I stayed till 17, and if we didn't get kicked out, but if the company didn't rearrange or restructure, we would have still been there, I think, till 50. That was our goal, because at 50, you get medical for life, so that was a big thing, but it didn't work out for us. So that was one of the things.
Were you ever frightened?
There was 2 big incidents that probably were the time that we were frightened. We got there before the, no, 9/11 was one, but before that, I'm trying to think, what was the thing that happened in why am I going blank? Anyway, a Scud missile hit directly into the compound, but it happened before it was there. They actually had people had to wear gas masks, and they left the country in a little bit of a rush, but we didn't experience that, but our friends did. They actually named a kid, what did you say it was? Oh. Yeah, one of the kids was named Scud because they thought it was funny after they we said it at the time. So anyway, but yeah, so there was an incident, a compound near us called Oasis Compound, which later I'll show you a picture. They had an ice skating rink, which was pretty cool there. They had an incident where they were going door to door knocking, and if you weren't Muslim, they were dragging you out. So we left the country at that time. My daughters and I, my husband stayed, and the guys stayed back digging bunkers out and drinking and whatever they were doing. But that was probably a 2-3 month period, and then we were back to normal, and whatever normal is in Saudi. And then the only other time is sometimes you'll hear something that the oil refinery has been attacked. That's when they would be careful about what we did. All right, any other questions for that? And I have questions at the end too, so if something comes up you didn't ask, you can ask me at the end as well. So, how did Girl Scouts begin in Saudi Arabia? Well, in 1925, the Girl Scouts overseas, sorry, I'm putting this back too close, which they call GSO, that's what you hear it as, has supported Girl Scout troops outside the United States. In 1947, the Girl Scouts troops were organized in Saudi Arabia for the girls of the employees that worked for Saudi Aramco. It was established 54 years ago. And as I mentioned earlier, Saudi Aramco was an American-owned company, so they wanted to make it as comfortable as they could for the Americans coming in and people from other nationalities. Mostly Americans, because like I was mentioning, it's a class system. Saudi, Americans, Brits, Australians, and then it just kept going down. And pretty much Filipinos, Indians were down on the bottom of the list. And that's basically how you got paid and how you got your grade code. Let's see where we're at. So they wanted to offering Girl Scouts to Saudi Arabia was not only empowering to the girls from the U.S., but also the girls of all nationalities, including Saudis. So we did have Saudis that did join in the Girl Scouts. I actually had a Saudi co-leader at one point, and I actually asked I actually had two Saudi co-leaders at one point. She invited us over for dinner. You get a whole different experience when you go to their homes. But they're lovely people. I mean, they really are. We really enjoyed being co-leader with her. But she, one of the ladies asked, well, why do you cover? I really wanted to know, because she wasn't one that wore the full thing. She just covered their head. For some reason, hair was the biggest thing that had to be covered. Even though you think your body was the hair, it had to be covered. Even though I never covered my hair. I always wore the shayla around my neck, but because I couldn't do it. Basically, I never could get it right. It would fall off every single time. And then they had this one in Israel, in Iran, they have one you push back and it sits flat and you have your head sticking out. It was not comfortable. But anyway, let's see, I lost my places. But I'll just go back to this if I...
Living Saudi Arabia co-leaders.
Oh yeah, so I asked why does she cover? She said it was her choice. Because a lot of it is the man's choice. A lot of it's the tribe you're in, which are you Sunni, are you Shiite, where do you come from? That makes a difference whether you're covered or not. I mean, everybody covered, but to what degree, how religious. So she said, she used to never cover. And then one day she decided she felt guilty and just started covering.
Guilty about what?
Not covering. Pretty much not covering. Not conforming, I guess is what she was feeling. But besides that, they love doing all the activities with us. But so in a country where women are considered second-class citizens, this is a wonderful opportunity for the Girl Scouts to have been there. And what I mean by that is, even the women actually walk 3 steps behind the men. And they kind of just follow them. It's interesting to see. Now, it's not as bad as it was, or backwards, I used to call it, as it was, but it was, they started to get to work, but like as a cashier at a store somewhere. But some did go off to school, so I can't say that. There are some that are doctors, there were some, but the ones that were Bedouins, which is the people that started out living in the desert, those are the ones that they're trying to now give a chance to become more than just second-class citizens. So they also, after I left Saudi, probably, let's see, I left in November, the following June or July, they started letting ladies drive. And I was grateful I left because, to be honest, the bus was a lot better than trying to drive in Saudi Arabia. You've got all these different nationalities trying to drive. You've got Indians that go too slow, too fast, they step on their brake. You've got the Saudis that the lines in the roads are just optional. They don't mean anything. and an accident in Saudi, because they don't even have kids in car seats, is fatal. There's just, it's horrible to see. You'll see pieces everywhere. It's just terrible to see. And they were the highest accidents rates in the world. So, all right, so going back to Girl Scouts, there we go. So during my time, let's see, oh yeah, I have so many more stories like I would share, but I wanted to get into Girl Scouts too long. So if you have questions at the end, we can do that. So just like in the US, they have the Daisies, and this is my troop, and we, as you can see, we dressed into Saudi attire several times during the time we were there, because it's fun. Because half of them were, I guess, Middle Eastern, and half of them were American or another nationality. And then you have the Brownies. My daughters, okay. This is my younger one. Let's see. I'll have to show my older. I think this is because I was doing my younger troop. I can find more pictures. I'll show you my older one later, but this is my younger daughter. And then, oh, here's my older daughter. This is my older daughter. So then we have the juniors. And they're all holding camels, because I'll tell you more about it, because they had won something, and that's why we put camels on them, but I'll tell you more about that in a minute. And then we have the cadets. And I thought it'd be interesting for you to learn a little bit about more of the cadets. So they have a mission statement: Girl Scouts build girls of courage, confidence, and character who make a world a better place. And these Girl Scouts earned their Silver Award, which you know is the highest honor. So one of them did this cookbook, and I'm going to just read what she wrote about why she chose to do the cookbook. So actually 2 of them did it. The 2 here, this is the leader and her daughter, and because you'll find every leader's daughter was involved. and especially you'll also see that most of the leaders were American, Middle Eastern, or usually not Saudi. They used to think we were babysitting, especially the younger ones. Here's my kids. And we used to say, no, you have to get involved. So it was a challenge at times, but as I mentioned, I did have a Saudi co-leader, so they adjusted some. So the cookbook project, they decided to do, they said they recognize a need for diverse, nutritious recipes for fast-paced lives. They created a digital cookbook of recipes that can be made in less than 45 minutes. The cadets mentioned they chose to use a website because it's environmentally friendly, paperless, and can reach a wide range of audiences. So I thought if you're interested, this is the website, and you can write it down if you want to check it out, or I can send it to Rayanne and she can put it in the minutes. But it's a pretty cool one. Let me see if I can get to it real quick. So it's called Scrumptiously Swift, and it has home, fruits and vegetables. If you click on it, they have ones that you can make. And fattoush, if you want to try fattoush, it's amazing. I love this. This is a salad. It has pita in it, which I can't eat anymore. But anyway, it's really a delicious salad. In fact, the other day we went to a Middle Eastern restaurant. So if you ever want to go to the best Middle Eastern restaurant that's closest to authentic, it's in Orlando, and it's called Jerusalem, which is actually a Palestinian restaurant. Just kind of, yeah. All right, so let me get back to.
I can't find that website, Scrumptious.
It's scrumptiously.weebly.com.
Oh, okay.
All right, and then the other one that earned her silver award, she decided to do a library for orphanages in her home country, which was in Colombia. At the beginning, there were more. It went through cycles, as you saw the different nationalities go through Saudi. At the beginning, we had more Americans, then more Brits, and then it became, when we left, it was a lot more South American that we found that moved in here, and that's what most of these girls here are. And she decided to, collected books from the donors, and then sent some books back from Tehran, and selling other books to buy new books, shelves, tables, and chairs for the orphanage to have its own library. The cadet said, I believe that education is the only way these orphans, who are at disadvantage, can choose their future to hopefully better it. The next part I'm going to go into is we did calendar sales instead of cookie sales. And I thought it would be better for you to hear it from a girl. So this is my daughter, this is the younger daughter, and she's going to share with you why we did cookie sales.
It was a pretty normal childhood, as I could still be involved in multiple sports, sing in the choir, play in band, and be involved with Girl Scouts. Although there were some differences, like with Girl Scouts for instance, we were unable to sell the beloved Girl Scout cookies that so many of you have come to love because the Girl Scout cookies contain pork fat, and pork is illegal in Saudi Arabia. So instead we sold calendars. I personally prefer the cookies. But generally, overall, things were normal. It was a pretty normal childhood, and be involved.
Okay, so this presentation, why I pulled this out is, and you can tell she's practicing. She was practicing for a public speaking class in her graduate program. But I thought it fits so perfectly, I had to put it in. Sure. All right. So the calendar sales, so we would take turns as leaders creating the calendar. And my daughter was funny about it because she told me the other day, Mom, why did we do calendar sales? Why did we put our pictures in it? That's kind of creepy, because we would have each Girl Scout troop, and these were sold to everyone. And she's like, yeah, that was creepy, but we did do it. Then we changed it over, so after a period of time, we no longer had Girl Scout troop pictures, and they're just names, but we would do different themes. And one year it was all of the history that we took from the pictures of that one museum I've mentioned before. And I had an opportunity to do that. And it was definitely a whole community activity. So we would sell them in front of the commissary. We would go door to door with our groups. And it was a good experience. And this is the CEO, at the time, the CEO of Aramco. So we would always give him one every year, the calendar. Then our troop decided to do a fundraiser. This is before their cookbook that they did digital, and we just decided to do it for fun. So we decided to take food, and I was really looking for this, but my box is upstairs. I could not find my abaya. I gave up after a while. But the cookbook we put together had recipes. Each one had to provide about 5 recipes with whatever they wanted of food that they enjoyed or food from their country. And then we put it together and we sold it. And again, the community got very much involved and we enjoyed it. We tried, as you can see, we tried some of them ourselves. So here are some of the activities that we did as a troop. And this is I was my younger daughter's troop leader more than I was my older daughters for a very short time. That's why you're seeing more of my younger daughters, because it was easier to find hers. but I do have a couple of my older daughters. So this is jebbles is the rock formations that you can climb. And we had all of the jebbles on our compound. We would have, so it was kind of in the middle. So the golf course was here, and then you had these jebbles that we could climb all over the place. And the jebbles out off of Saudi was where the camels roamed and the Bedouins and all that. So it's kind of a mini example of it inside the compound. So we cleaned it up. As you can see, we got a lot of stuff because they don't care. That was one of the biggest things about Saudi Arabia, and I actually found it Israel as well when I visited. They just drop things. Because they figured we called them the little guys would pick them up, because we did have people that would pick up, but not out in the jungles. So we felt like that was a project we needed to do. And then I mentioned ice skating before. They had a big ice skating rink on another compound, and we would just go out and on the Aramco bus, usually, or sometimes we could get the dads to drive. And we would go ice skating. My daughter, actually, the younger one that I mentioned, she actually loved ice hockey and got really into ice hockey in Saudi Arabia. She tells people, I go, what? Because that doesn't seem very common of Saudi Arabia. Then, of course, just like we all have fun dressing up. And then this is a lady, her name's Manira, and she has a beautiful home. She was an executive's wife, they were retired, and there was a special part of the campus, the compound, that some of the executives could live. And they had, in her home, she had a museum, so she would invite the kids and anybody else in the women's group, whatever we would have, these self-directed groups, she would invite them to be able to go and see her, invite us to breakfast. And a Saudi lady serving you food is like going to a Jewish lady's home or a big Thanksgiving feast every time. It was incredible how much food, and you had to do what you could to show respect, especially Arabic coffee, and you'd shake your cup or turn it upside down if you didn't want any more, if you wanted more. And that's a very distinct coffee flavor. It's not regular coffee, it's very strong. And eating it with a date really made a difference, because it has cardamom in it too, which is a different flavor altogether. But so it was very nice for her to offer that to the Girl Scouts. This over here is called the Hobby Farm. I had a picture of a horse and I didn't keep it in, but that's where we go horseback riding. The residents of the Ramco could buy a horse and have it stay in a stall there, and then they'd have a horse care out of the hobby farm area. So we would do that with the picture here is of another group that came to visit us from Ath Cake. So we did intermingle with other camps with the other Girl Scout troops. And then this is a picture of World Thinking Day, which I'm going to get into later. And this is a picture of us as we earned our Bronze Award. So each girl had a special requirement to do to be able to earn their Bronze Award through the World Thinking Day. This is a picture of our, we did a Girl Scout talent show for the Founders Day in honor of Juliet Lowe. So this is, they each did different things. This one was, I found this one my favorite. They did the hokey pokey in those little outfits where they have their hands up, and they did the hokey pokey. It was very cute. And this one's a Spanish dance, and they just did lots of different things. And the leaders got involved, and of course we would finish with a friendship circle. So it was a great experience for the girls. And then we had some annual events that we did every year. This is the father-daughter dance. Now, just like you're using a room right here in a rec center, we had a multi-purpose room that if we were a self-directed group, so the girls would consider that, we got a room that we could use that was up to 200 people could fit into this room, and then they would set up the tables. So that's when I went to Village, I'm like, woohoo, this is awesome. Because they set up tables, they took down the tables, all we had to do was put up the decorations, so it was awesome. And it was a great bonding time for the dads, for the girls, because they don't always get as much time with them, so we thought that was good. But then the mothers felt left out, so we started doing a mother-daughter dance as well. So as this is my older daughter, and this is my younger daughter, and you can tell the ages were not what they are now, but we had a lot of fun. And it was a great way for intermingling with the moms that weren't involved in Girl Scouts to see what we did. This is the World Thinking Day. So World Thinking Day they did every year, and it was different troops led it, but every troop was involved to pick out a country that they really wanted to share about. And so we would pick a country, then we'd have to do an activity. Sometimes it was indoors, sometimes it was outdoors, and we would do different activities. One of the kids' favorite ones was, I don't remember where it was from, but it was trying on, putting as many clothes, like going into a bag and trying on as many clothes as you can, and then running it back, and then the next person taking it off, and the next person had to go put it back on and put it in. So it was pretty fun. And then we had campouts. You can't go without campouts. So we had, this is the fall campout, and the fall campout was out in the jungles. So it was very rough, but the positive thing is, as you can see, it's an amazing tent, isn't it? They set up a tent for every troop like that. So the company did it for us. They knew the Girl Scouts were having their fall camp out, and they provided what we needed to provide and just getting it set up. And so we were responsible to, of course, cook, set a fire up, do a hike, learn about compasses and other outdoor activities. So we did all of the Girl Scout things there. And then the Boy Scouts had a pit there, a fire pit, that we would always do a dusk hike. All the troops together would go, and they do a dusk hike that we would have to have our flashlights and figuring out how to get there. And we'd have our camp songs and all that, and then we'd have to hike our way back. So it was pretty nice, and it was only for a weekend. So, yeah.
Can I ask a question about that? Just curious. So you're in the middle of the desert, okay? The camping and hiking and stuff that, at least I remember, you teach them about the side of the tree, the moss grove.
No. Compass. We had compasses. That was a big activity, was compasses. We did that a lot. And this Jebels is on the compound. We didn't go off this was actually on the compound. So it was a weekend, and they also provided us porta potties. So we had porta potties to use, so we didn't have to. Yes, it was a Western, what you know of a porta potty. Actually, it was probably the cleaner porta potties you could imagine, because they were well kept porta potties. So then the fall we did the fall camp out in the Jebels. The spring we did it at the beach. And again, the company set up the tents, which was amazing. They also set up a tent for cooking, so we had a coverage with tables and chairs. And because we're at the beach, we could use their showers and their toilets. So these were all good things. Now the kids didn't love it because they were responsible to clean those. So they had to clean the showers, they had to clean the toilets, and they had to do the dishes, the kitchen duty, the dishes, and the cooking, which was fun. Though they set up, we actually had big grills set up. They also brought for us. So it was very, very spoiled example of a camp. I think this is the one I like to go to.
So was that on the Persian Gulf?
Yes, this is on the Arabian what's it called? Arabian Sea. Yeah, it's not the Red Sea. The Red Sea's on the other side. So this was the Arabian Sea. Or I'm trying to think. They don't call it Arabian Sea anymore. I'm going blank. But anyway, yeah. So it was a nice time. So this is some of the kids doing some sand stuff. They're kayaking. I love to do crafts, so I had a craft tent that I did activities with the kids, and of course they got to play. And then this is about the size of what would go. So mostly it was brownies and juniors that would go, because the cadets, of course, are not there. Or if they're on spring break, they're not coming back to go camping and camp out. So this is about the size of one of them. And we had different themes every year. Yes?
What about the wildlife when they go camping?
Now that is kind of funny. They had wild dogs, but not in the camp. The beach, nothing. But the Jebels, yes, there were wild dogs. And we were one year we were singing. Our theme was Australia, and so we were singing and learning about dingoes. And for whatever reason, I was half asleep and I'm yelling, "There's a dingo in here! There's a dingo in here!" The kids are going, "What?" But no, it was just and the wild dog just literally picked his head and left. But they were also not coyotes. They were wolves, I think. Yeah, they were Saudi wolves. They had big long tails. Not wolves, foxes. They were foxes. And they had these big long bushy tails. So if you had a little dog, there was a chance you could lose your little dog if he was loose. Kind of like the alligators here. All right. Huh?
The group of girls that you showed there, how many troops would that be?
Well, let's see. I think there were 15 or 20 troops, I think, that came to the Girl Scout camp. Because the fall camp out is just your troop. The Girl Scout camp out, the spring camp out was you were intermingled. So you were when they did the theme, you were in this group of the name of whatever theme they came up with, and that was your tent. So I would say at least 20 to 25 tents were set up. So now I wanted to go into a couple of unique activities that we did that are just only in Saudi Arabia. So this one's a day at the camel farm. We had one of the executives of Saudi Aramco, because like I said, they love the Girl Scouts, they really did. And they love little children. It changes as you become a woman, but they love little children. And so you actually have more rights as a child, because when you reach your age of menstruation, you cover. So as soon as you see a daughter, like I taught kindergarten through 5th grade music, and when they came in, and you know they were covered, you knew what happened, and everybody else did too. But anyway, back to the camel farm. So this is a picture of the kids got to play, got to hold falcons, and they also were rode camels. That was pretty much the full day of our experience. We did a little bit of hiking in the Jebels there, or in the desert there. And give me a second, because I'm ahead of myself. I didn't turn pages. Okay.
anything like that in your town.
It was an amazing experience, but I wanted to share about the falcons. So falcons are very prestigious animals. They had been using them for hunting and Bedouin history on the Arabian Peninsula for 10,000 years. In many parts of the world, if someone owns a horse, it's prestigious. Well, the same thing is how the Saudis see falcons. And falconry is the main attraction in Saudi Arabia because it is a tradition. So the camels, though, were a blast, and they make these horrible sounds when they go up and down. It's like a moaning sound. No, you're quieter. But anyway, here's a picture of how they go up. So what they do is they bend down on their forearms to go down so you can get on, and then they push themselves back to get back up. So it's an interesting experience to watch a camel, and they make sounds all the time. One of our experiences, we went to a different camel farm where they were selling the camels. They were picking them up in a crane and putting them in somebody's back of their Jeep. And it was just making the most horrible sounds. But that's how they could transport those animals that, for whatever reason, they were using them. And camels, just a little bit of knowledge about camels. For centuries, camels were a preferred mode of transporting goods and people across the desert because of the harsh landscape. Their milk and meat have been used to sustain locals, and the Saudis say camels are considered a historical symbol. And if you have a baby, the gentleman gives fresh baby camel meat to your neighbor. So we are handed a bag of, here you go. Here's camel meat. What do you do with it? But I figured some things out. It was good, but it was unusual. So instead of you giving a gift, they give you a gift of no, I would say more like medicine, more like theory. So
they milk camels? You get milk from them?
I'll show you that in a second, yes, to answer your question. But before we get there, because that's on the next slide, this is a picture of kapsa. It's a rice and meat dish, but if you notice, there's a skull on top. The reason why there's a skull on top, because it's saying, this is the meat I say is on this plate. So it's showing that I'm honorable. I guess it's really how they're looking at it. And as you see, this is my husband. And you don't usually use utensils, you use your hand. And you usually get the Arabic bread and you grab everything with the Arabic bread and then you ball it in your hand and then you eat it. I could never get into that. I need to have my utensils, but I tried a few times. I didn't have to do it most of the time. Huh? Well, women don't. Oh, the men do. Oh yeah, then the women have to clean them. Actually, it's not the women. Almost every woman has some kind of houseboy, housemaid, a nanny, somebody takes care of the kids. They don't do most of that. If they're in the executive, there are Bedouins and those that do stuff out in the desert, but those are the ones that in the Ramco would be nanny taking care of the kids, and they would just kind of do their thing, mostly shopping.
So what kind of animal is that?
So that's a lamb.
That's a lamb?
Yeah, that's a lamb head.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's this called represent?
Kapsa. Kapsa is the name of the meal. It's a rice and meat dish that has a real amazing flavor. It's called kapsa.
And they put the skull on it because?
To prove to be honorable. This, I say it's lamb, it's lamb.
No bait and switch.
Yeah, no bait, exactly, no bait and switch. And so you see the gentleman here, ladies would sit with ladies and men would sit with men, and there was no intermingling unless you were of the same family. And if you weren't intermingling, you would be totally covered as a woman. Because I went to a Saudi wedding, which was pretty much not a Saudi wedding. The woman was there, the man was in another room, and if the man was coming through, which he did once, the women ran and covered themselves with their abayas. And only the people that were part of the family were not covered. So milk cam, yes. This is a rare thing you get to do. We got to go to the camel farm. I don't think many people can say that they milked a camel in Saudi Arabia. It's very simple, very much, if you've ever milked a cow, it's a lot harder because it's a lot harder, literally, and a lot bigger. But as you see, the milk then goes into this bowl, and it is not pasteurized, it doesn't go through anything, and then you take this bowl and you pass it among everybody, and everybody drinks out of it. And if you don't, you're not showing respect to the host. So I doubt this happened during COVID. I would hope not. but anyway, so this is my daughters here doing it. Not all the girls got this opportunity. Only the girls that were with the Girl Scout leaders got to be able to milk the camel.
It looks good. It doesn't.
Exactly. Oh, it is. Well, that's the foam on top.
Oh, it's
Yeah, it's like a foamy thing on top. And it's very warm because it just came out of the teat. So one of the things that Saudi men like to do is they like to dance, and like I said, men. The women will dance with the men in another place, but the men will dance together, and so they basically did a social dance for us while we sat there. And of course there was kids. They were able to let us, and because we're American, they let us all kind of take pictures together. So we took a picture with all of them. And this is, it was, even though it was a man's home or a man bed, he invited his friends and neighbors, and whoever wanted to come, they came and joined us. And I think a lot of them were Aramco executives that came and joined in for the day. So we were always highlighted somewhere. So the next trip, I only have a couple more just to let you know. The next trip, this is called a trip to Sheba. And we were able to go, this is an Aramco flight, so this is the company plane, they let the kids go on. We probably did that twice or 3 times while we lived in. It got harder as more people came in and things changed and company changed, but it was nice to experience the plane, and it was a beautiful plane. And so Sheba is a major crude oil field production site in Saudi Arabia. It was developed by Saudi Aramco, and it's near the Aruba Kali Empty Quarter Desert. And it's known for its red sand. So that's what it's known for. But we didn't go there to see a tour of the oil field. They don't do that. We went there to go sand sledding.
Oh.
So sand sledding is like snow sledding, but on sand. And yes, you have to climb up those high dunes. So there's 2 ways to do that. Sometimes they have a rope that you can use to get up, or you take your sand sled and you go in and try to get up and not fall backwards. So I wanted to give you a chance to see. This is my husband, and he's going to go down, and you're going to see. That's what I'm going to do. Sheba. I'm sorry. The other thing there that they did, which I couldn't get a good picture of, is that they do quadding, which is riding on an ATV kind of all over the dunes. And my daughter, but they only put you on based on your age. And my older daughter was tall, but she wasn't the age, so they put her on the wrong side. She flipped it and chipped her tooth, and we've had to deal with that since. So they don't always do things that make logic. Logic was not something that they were known for. But we had a good time. The other thing they did was a forerunner. So you'd ride around in your forerunner in the dunes, just going over all the, yeah, not safe.
Was the sand really hot when you were trying to climb up?
Not during this time. I think this was in January, but it could have been. It can be. And also, if it didn't rain, you wouldn't slide nicely. That was part of our problems. The dunes by us and near the beaches and all that, they weren't as nice as these. That's why to have an opportunity to fly over to do sand sledding in Sheba was a huge thing, and it did not often you get to do that. So this is my older daughter's trip. They did a couple of fun things that I wanted to put in here. They did Rostanora was the other camp, which was also on a beach. So we had 2 beach opportunities. The one that we did the spring camp out, and then the one that was part of Rostanora. And so they did a triathlon where they helped all the gentlemen keep water going. So they would hand water out at water stations all the way along. They got the participants. And then this is we had a social studies teacher who loved doing Indian dances, and so he had all the girls get involved in doing Indian dances and making dream catchers, and did the story about dream catchers.
Indian as in Native American.
I apologize, Native American, yes. And my older daughter wanted me to share one more story because she felt like it was important to let you know how empowered the Girl Scouts were. Because I told her I was doing this, she said, "Mommy, you tell about this story," because I didn't know as many things about her troop. And she said, "We participated with the Boy Scouts in a first aid competition and we won." So this is the last part of my presentation. One of the other activities we did, it was the 95th anniversary of Girl Scouts. We planted trees. They had an area that needed trees, and so we planted 95 trees. All the troops, not just my troop. And then this is a picture of, we love to dress up in our the Saudi attire, the traditional wear. That bias wasn't the only thing they wore. They had mostly like this type of thing on, or so this one has pants to go with it, and it's a huge pair of pants that you just pull a string and fits any size. The top part is the one that's a little more challenging, but they also have most of them are just long dresses that are traditional and beautiful and can cost over thousands of dollars. But my daughter's here put a presentation on for the moms, and I thought we'd finish with hearing a Saudi song, the traditional song that they sing. It's called Fi Halawa, and it means I want candy.
لما في هلاوة
basically it's I want candy, I want candy, yes I do, yes I do. No, you can't have candy, no, you can't do. All right, so any questions?
What do you call the outfit that you're wearing?
This is a shalwa kameez.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and then you see a lot of them with saris. That's the one that you see their arms and.
Yeah.
That's not to me. They could wear that in Saudi because they were from India, but the shalwa kameez is sort of much more conservative. Anything else? Well, thank you very much for your time.